Hi, my name is Crystal McDowell and this video is for AP Biology. It is an introduction to infographics, deciphering data with diagrams. Basically, the reason we want to incorporate infographics more this year is because we believe they can help you learn the AP Biology science practices that we're going to incorporate in all of our different inquiry-based labs and many of our activities and discussions this year. So basically, infographics are representations of data and of research. So it's a person communicating, an argument or an investigation or some type of research that they've done. So we're going to use those representations to kind of figure out and solve the problems that they're trying to present, or at least work through them. Then we're also going to practice our skills of being able to describe those representations and really trying to figure out what they mean. That's going to allow us to be able to analyze those situations critically, both in qualitative and quantitative means, looking at the observations that way and the data. We're also going to be taking a look at the questions that are being presented. The overall research question that may be displayed, but also the questions that you and I can generate just by analyzing the actual infographic itself. So it's really going to help us to develop a lot of the science process skills and practices that we're being asked to cover in AP Biology, and that are really just important to science in general. We're also going to take a really close look at data analysis. Much of the new AP exam and how it's been revised really is focusing on the ability to critically analyze situations, taking the content of biology that you've learned, but then applying it to displays of data and to analyzing what the graphical representation may mean. So infographics is a wonderful way, a wonderful tool for you to practice those types of assessments that you will see later in the year on that AP exam. So data analysis is key. Taking a look at those pieces of evidence and evaluating them, and then looking for trends, looking for relationships and patterns so that we can refine our observations, refine our hypotheses, refine our conclusions, and maybe even our measurements, because we may have to go back to an investigation and redo it so that we can make sure that the claims that we're making are valid based on the data that we've collected. We're going to evaluate the pieces of evidence from the data sets, from the research that's being done, and then we're going to go back and we're going to take a look at that scientific question and see if it was truly answered, or see what kind of support for or against the hypothesis may have been found. Those are the types of things that these practices can help us with, and infographics is a way that we can start using those skills and start employing those skills in the classroom. That's going to allow us to connect and relate all kinds of concepts throughout the year, and allow us to take a look at scale and even some generalizations and extrapolations within some of those representations of data. So let's take a look at one of those infographics. I'm going to kind of introduce you to a strategy that I've put together that I think might be helpful whenever you work through these infographics. It's basically the 6I method, and it includes the following terms: identify, inquire, interpret, infer, investigate, and imagine. So anytime we present you with an infographic, if you work through those 6 I's, then you should be able to collect data and analyze that infographic very critically so that you can learn a lot about what it's trying to communicate and about what the information means. So let's take a look at each one of those. What I mean by identify is just initially scan the infographic and look for a title, look for the images, and try to figure out what the main question that is trying to be asked is. What are they trying to prove? What are they trying to show? What's the purpose of this infographic? What does it mean? So basically just that big idea topic of what it is trying to demonstrate. In this case, you have a title: Ratio of Landmass and Population Now and Then. It's showing populations in these areas in 2011 and then projected populations for 2031 in relation to the size of that landmass. So basically, you look at the pictures and you can kind of see that. You look at the title and you get an image of that. That allows you to start making more detailed observations and allows you to start to inquire, to start to generate questions about these images that you're seeing. So now you're going to look more closely and more critically at the infographic and start taking notes about observations that you make and questions that are generated from those observations. So you get more detailed with your observations at this point, really pulling some of the images and what they mean from the infographic to start collecting those pieces of data. That's going to allow you to start to interpret what those images actually mean. So pay careful attention to how the data is represented. The colors matter. You know, the fact that Russia is represented in green and the other three areas in red, that's important. There's a reason for that. The direction of the arrows, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for the black dots in comparison in relation to the red dots, and how some countries have both and other places only have one. All of that information is critical to understanding what the infographic is trying to convey. So you really have to be very specific in your observations, and then as you interpret this particular infographic or any one that we give you, start to elaborate on your explanations to start to make statements about what all of that data means. That's going to allow you to then take those observations, those questions, and those interpretations and allow you to create inferences, to start making inferences about all of that data. Now, as you construct those inferences, you may or may not be correct with the statements that you write. So basically, another good strategy would be to investigate a little bit, validate what you're trying to say with research. You know, they give you data from 2011 and projected data for 2031. Perhaps you could look to see if there's been any research conducted on population trends up to 2014 from 2011. Perhaps there's research that you could do on each individual area that shows density dependent and density independent factors that could contribute to some of these changes or trends in population growth that are being projected and that are being seen. So research is key because you're going to expand your learning, you're going to expand your knowledge about this infographic and what it's trying to convey if you also contribute more research to it. By doing that, that's also going to allow you to improve the infographic. You can critically look at that infographic now and tell what good displays of data it has, and you can also start to make suggestions about what could make it better. So that's what we mean by improve. That strategy is going to help you when it's time for you to make your own infographic, because you're going to have practice at being critical and looking at what's good and what could be improved upon with these infographics. That will also allow you to imagine, to look at the infographic and start to consider, hey, what kind of research project could I come up with? What kind of investigation could I design that's related to this topic that is being communicated and being displayed? What can I extrapolate further from that data, from that information? So you're taking your learning a step further in that imagine section. Eventually, we're going to ask you to create your own infographic, and then we'll add a seventh eye, and that seventh eye is innovate, because you will start to put together the data that you collect, the research that you do, and you will create an infographic later in the semester as well. So now you're going to try. I want you for homework to use the infographic that was on the previous slides and to use this infographic, Hello World, and work through those 6 eyes. Analyze the infographic, take notes, jot down your brainstorming session about what this infographic is about and what the previous infographic is about, and then bring that information to class tomorrow, because that's how we're going to start class, is by discussing what you guys came up with about these 2 infographics. So I look forward to hearing what you come up with, and before we do go, I just want to kind of have a shout out to Bits of Science Infographics. This is where I was able to find both of the infographics that we used, and they willingly let us to use them in our classrooms, but obviously we just need to make sure that we reference the fact that they have individuals that have created these particular infographics. So really appreciate them allowing us to use them so that we can better our understanding of the 7 science practices and just of science in general. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow and seeing what you come up with. Have a good night. Thank you, and see you tomorrow. Bye.